في ظل كل ما يجري من أحداث في بلدنا الحبيب لبنان، اقتصاد يواجه أبشع أنواع الانهيار، وشعب مهدد بالجوع والفقر. بلدنا الحبيب الصامد في وجه الفساد والفقر وانعدام الفرص والحقوق. ومن هنا بلد الفرص أمريكا نضوي شمعة لتنير وتثقف وتسلط الضوء على النجاحات العرب، وتحديدا نجاحات النساء العربيات لوين ما كانوا بأي بلد يبدعوا. اليوم برنامج هي بيسلط الضوء على قصة كل امرأة تعبت لوصلت ولتكون نموذج لباقي النساء وجيل المستقبل. A wife at 15, a mother at 16, a widow at 35, and heartbroken by the loss of her son at age of 50. My guest is the author of A Sprinkle of Dust and the 25 Icons of Peace in the Quran. She has published and presented many articles on second language acquisition, Arab women and culture, religious barrier, interfaith and Islamophobia. She is the recipient of numerous awards and honors. She is the creator and retired director of the English Language Institute at Henry Ford College. My guest today is an inspirational lady, Dr. Mary Assel, and we're gonna take a break and we'll be right back.
Michigan's best contemporary is at Telegraph and 12 Mile. And now at Gorman Southfield, save up to 50% off. That's limited time savings of up to 50% off all contemporary at Gorman Southfield. Telegraph and 12 Mile.
The One. We are business consultants who equip leaders to lead at their highest level while building teams that work together and support their team and the leadership. We deliver customized business solutions that fit your company's needs, including business development and customized process solutions. Contact us today. Thank you.
مساء الخير and welcome to Heya. I'd like to introduce Dr. Mary Assels. It's great to have you at Heya and What's Up Media.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I'm very, very appreciative. Thank you so much.
Welcome. I have to say, you are an outstanding writer. I have read a few pages of your book, A Sprinkle of Dust, and I had to hold back my tears. It's really profound and deep and descriptive. Tell me.
Well, first of all, when I wrote the book, I didn't just write it. We talked earlier, and it took many years. Mm-hmm. I took a lot of notes, and then over time, I set it aside maybe for about 2-3 years and said to myself, I'm not going to do anything with this. I got my feelings out on paper, but then I said to myself, no, I think Mazen would want me to do more with this. And to somewhat, when I can go over a few things, like the 5 stages of grief, if we want to take Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages and tell you, yes, that almost everyone goes through these 5 stages.
Yeah.
First of all, you don't, I can go there if you want, but in the meantime, I just want to say the reason I wrote the book is so that, first of all, I can feel better myself, that my son is there. I can pick up the book, read about him, and
I know.
never forget little things that meant nothing then but mean more now. And
it must have been very devastating for you. Would you be able to take us back in time when you found out that your son had only 2 weeks left to live?
Yes. I was doing a side job for my sister, and then Mazen always had headaches, and his wife told me, can you get Mazen to see a doctor? And he did. After I spoke to him, and insurance companies don't do MRIs right away. And what upset me after his death is I went and fought the insurance companies in Washington,
After
DC.
his death, okay.
After his death, but they just don't do MRIs. They don't approve them right away. But once he did the MRI and I found out that he had 2 weeks to live, I looked at his wife and I said to her, you know, in this country, women have every right to take charge, and the mother means nothing. Will you allow me to take charge? And she's like, you take charge of anything and everything as long as we can save my husband. I don't know if I can save him based on the data that I'm reading and all the information that I'm reading.
Were you like confused at that time? Were you confused at that time?
I was confused, but no, the science was in front of me.
Okay.
And you can't deny factual information, and the information in front of me was bad.
Right.
You know, but still, you know, I'm a believer, a strong believer in God, and I say to myself, there might be a different way. Who knows? So I took that information, and when the doctor had told him, go home and write your will, that's when I told Mona, let me help and let me take charge, and she said okay. And of course we went, and you know, they were trying to give him morphine and end his life peacefully with morphine. And that's when I said to myself, this isn't going to end here.
You did not accept it?
No.
Okay.
And that's when my battle began. I started doing all my research. I started Googling and doing whatever I could do.
To learn more about his condition.
About his condition. My PhD was on the science of the brain and how we understand and memory and all that. And so I already had
so you had like a background
great interest in the brain. And then I took classes. I signed up. My son's very ill, but I signed up for medical school classes. Even though I was auditing those classes, I signed up for them so that I could understand more about his condition. And of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not going to be able to compete with anything that the medical world is telling me.
But you were trying so hard to save his life. I mean, you tried through science, through faith,
anything
and you never gave up till the end.
Anything I could do. And honestly, the 2 years that he did live, after the 2 weeks that he was given to live, one entire year was an excellent year in the life of his children. He was able to communicate more with his children. And
he was kind of fine.
He was up and fine and walking and doing things normal. He gradually went backwards. I want to say the last 6 months of his life he was bedridden. And that was hard. That was difficult. And that's when I had no choice. But
I remember you mentioned in the book about you went to Mexico.
Yes.
To this lady.
Well, I went to brain tumor conferences. I decided that, okay, let me go see what they do at these brain tumor conferences. And I did. And I was walking in and out of one conference room to the other and realizing what's going on. And then I heard music. And then when I went into one of the rooms, there was a man playing the guitar and singing. And he said, don't believe that the song was a beautiful song. And he said, don't believe the medics. Just move on and get your own hope and do whatever you need to do on your own, and don't believe doctors. And
the song
with all
said
due
that.
respect to doctors, he said they told me I was going to die within a year, and here I am. It's been 7 years.
So you got that thing.
So that gave me a little bit of hope.
Head,
So I called my brother, and we went to see the Mexican curandera in Mexico.
Okay.
And we went there, and
you had hope back then, like you wanted to hold on to something.
I figured science has failed me. Maybe if I see a curandera, she'll give me some hope.
Right.
She didn't. You know, I had a shirt from Mazen, and she said, I'll pray, but I can't do anything.
So you felt it at that time, like
that was it? That was it for there. And so I came home knowing that, it was just a matter of time after that. And I think that was like in February, and Mazen died in April.
Okay. I know grief provokes, physical and emotional symptoms and spiritual insights and turmoil as well. And what's his name? Let me see. He is a film producer. His name is Timothy Shriver. He said, if you get grief wrong, you get a lot of things wrong.
Well, he's right in ways if you get it wrong. In other words, some people take their grief and they live in their grief, and they feel that they're betraying their loved one
if they don't
if they
grieve.
don't grieve, and if they don't wear black, and if they don't, it's like, okay,
they owe it to
we owe it to our loved one.
Yeah.
And even in my book, I mention Victor Hugo, one of the French philosophers who lost his daughter, and his friends told him, go back to work. I mean, a big writer, and why wouldn't he go back to work? And he said to them, but my daughter's in the grave and I'm trying to keep her warm. And to him, it meant going back to work meant forgetting about his daughter.
Yeah, it's like the guilt.
And he's like, I'm not going to go back to work. And I think, honestly, that maybe going back to work is very, very helpful for me at the time.
To keep you occupied.
At least I was fooled into believing that it was helpful. I went back to work, and it took me away from everything around me, and I didn't have to think about anything other than what I was doing at work. But at the same time, I would come home. I would go home, and then I would be like, well, now I'd have to start crying again.
Yeah, but did it help you somehow, like going back to at least not normal fully, but did it help you a little bit?
If I were to change something, and I know that it's something I did then that I wouldn't do again, I don't think I would have gone back to work that fast. I went back to work within a week.
Okay.
And what happened is I felt sorry for myself, and you could just read it. I mean, am I any good to you if I'm going to be crying? And if you're my student and I'm standing
so you're not
there,
in a good stage.
No, and you're my student and you're my student, and you're looking at me, and you're going to like say to yourself, well, maybe she should have stayed home. Like she's crying all the time. It was a difficult situation for my students more than it was for me. For me, it was me getting away and not.
So that was too fast to go back to work.
Right, and then 9/11 took place right after that. Mazen died in April, and then in September we had 9/11.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, now I have to deal with all these students who are crying and grieving, and they want to go.
It was a tragedy.
It was a big tragedy for a lot of people as well, and a lot of people died.
Right.
And then here you go with the grief part where, okay, I'm grieving, my son died, I'm going through, I want to say denial, but I couldn't go through denial because we don't cremate, we bury,
Yeah.
And if you bury someone, you watch that person go in the ground.
It's
you
hard.
You know that he's buried. You know that he's gone.
Right.
You want to say no, he's not gone, but you know he's
right. Don't you think when people hide or their pain and their feelings, that will fire back at them eventually?
Of course it will. Of course it will. And those 5 stages, they're not necessarily consecutive stages.
Yeah.
You can be here in denial, and then you can be over here in depression and go back.
Yeah, you mentioned in your book about the stages of grief, and can you walk us through those stages, at least to understand how to deal with grief, and
Well, when you first lose someone you love, I don't think it's wrong to cry, to scream, to speak your mind. There's nothing wrong with that, to me, because I'm very emotional, but at the same time, like some people would come up to me, Hanan, and say, Hek Allah badu, that's what God wants, that's okay. Okay, that's what he wants, but that's not what I want.
Yeah. So you couldn't accept
how is that going to make me feel better?
Okay.
I mean, that probably you're thinking that maybe, yeah, that's God's will, but it's not my will.
Yeah.
And my will would have been to keep my son with me, but
so you couldn't accept that
no,
fact
you
at that
can't.
time.
Some people want to be nice.
They're trying to comfort you, and this is the way to comfort you. And,
right, and it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And what happens is you need to let the person grieve. If a person's crying because they lost someone, you shouldn't have to tell that person, don't cry and you'll be okay and time will heal all wounds.
Yeah.
Time will never take away your pain. Your pain is going to be there till the day you die. That will be with you. The only difference with time is you've learned to accept it. So if you go through denial and then you start bargaining, and saying, well, God, you know what, and I did a lot of that.
The denial part, like
well, the denial, I didn't do too much of it because I knew my son was gone.
Okay.
I couldn't deny. My sister lost her husband. Before he died, and I want to say like maybe a week or two, she was in denial, and I could watch her. I could see the denial.
But maybe she didn't know that she was in denial, or
no,
she
didn't. No,
Yeah.
she didn't know. No, of course not. But I'm watching her. I'm watching. It's like she didn't think it was really happening.
Yeah.
And my mother was like that when my father died. It's like my mother didn't even want to be up that night, and she's like, "What do you mean?
She doesn't want to face the pain.
He's not going to die tonight.
Yeah.
Why are you going to stay here? Go home. Go be with your husband. Your father's not going to die tonight." So sometimes people are in denial. I, at the time, was not in denial because I knew my son was sick. And I knew my son wasn't going to make it. And I knew my son wasn't talking, wasn't moving, wasn't walking. All the signs were there. But if it's a sudden death, or if, like, my brother-in-law died within a few, months after he was diagnosed, that was, to me, that was sudden.
That was sudden.
My father had Alzheimer's, and we knew he was going to die, but he got, like, within a couple of weeks, he was gone.
Wow.
Those kinds of deaths, then the person will be in denial. So once you're done with denial, you go to the bargaining part where, okay, God, if I pray, if I give the poor, if I fast, if I commit to the 5 pillars of Islam, of my religion, will I reunite with my loved ones? Will I reunite with my mother?
So this is what you thought.
You bargain with God.
You're
bargaining with God, and you say,
Yeah.
"Can I do this? Can I do
Yeah.
this?" But then comes the part, and this I did suffer with. This one was anger. I was angry. I was angry at the world. I was angry at myself for living. I was angry at life. I was angry. I was just an angry
You're
person.
mad.
I'm the kind that, like, if you're standing in front of me in line, or if you cut in front of me, okay, go. You want to cut in front of me, cut in front of me.
Yeah.
Then, when I was angry, dare you cut in front of me?
You had to let it out on somebody.
I was angry. I was so angry. No, you couldn't even look at me. And then it took a couple of years. And then I said,
you were angry like for a couple of
years. Very angry at the world, very angry at everything. I didn't want to do anything.
But at that time, did you have support from your family,
Always.
loved ones?
Always.
And were you angry at them as well?
No. It was just angry at the world, angry at life. No, I wasn't angry with them. No, honestly, I wasn't. But I was just angry at, maybe I was angry more with myself than I was with them. But then that anger phase stopped when I said to myself, why am I angry? She didn't take my son. He didn't take my son. It's not their fault.
Yeah.
I can't be angry at people. And so
it took you a while to realize that.
Good 2 years. I'm not going to deny it. I said to myself, this isn't going to happen. So to calm my anger, in fact, I talked to my doctor at the time, and he gave me Wellbutrin, and he said that will keep you calm. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll stay calm, And I stayed on Wellbutrin for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and then I decided I don't need that. And then as soon as I got rid of the anger, And then I said to myself, okay, now that I'm angry, maybe I should just stay by myself, not do anything. And I went into a little bit of depression, not much of it, but a little bit of depression from fear that depression was not because I lost Mazen. My depression was, am I going to lose Rania? Am I going to lose Dania?
Oh, so you were scared.
Am I going to lose Adam? Am I going to, who else am I going to lose? You know, you go through that kind of, a lot of things start accumulating and you say, who am I going to lose now?
You know, I was reading something about, like, you have to recognize the F factor, which is fear and forgiveness and faith, in order for you to process, to move forward, transition the grief into something else, like a new phase or a new life or something.
Hanan, that is so true. That is so beautiful and so true. But when you tell someone, this is what you have, the F factor, and this is what you have to go through, when they are going through this phase, they don't hear you.
Yeah.
They're not. It has to be something they're listening to. You know, they have to. It has to be something they're willing to do.
Yeah.
It has to be something they're accepting. And
do you feel like you went through all the stages of grief yourself?
I did, and I want to say I added to them, like the acceptance part in the end. I accepted it, but accepting doesn't mean you're okay.
Like you move on and that's it, and life is good.
And you forget your son. What you accept, that now your son is no longer a physical being around you. He's a soul who lives inside of you, and he lives with you, and he's part of you, and he's not going anywhere. And the way I look at it, it's like when my mother died. My father died, and I loved my father. And again, I'll keep saying, my father was a wonderful man. And they don't come. I mean, I want to even cry when I think of my dad, because he never ever touched any of us. He was just a wonderful person, good-hearted man. But when he died, I accepted that, and I said, okay, God took him. But when my mother died, I felt like part of me was like, she was the founding root to who I am. She grounded me in this earth. She gave me who I am today. She made me who I am today. And that was hard. When Mazen died, it's part of me that died. I feel like, okay, now I lost a limb. You know, you feel like you lost.
So it's a different.
It's a different. Everything is a different
pain, different feeling.
Kind of pain. But the pain never. The pain lessens in a way.
But it never goes away completely.
No. There's always going to be a hole in your heart.
Yeah, knowing what you know right now, what would you have done differently to ease your pain?
I would have honestly probably socialized more with my 2 daughters and living son. My youngest son was a baby at the time, and I honestly didn't want to do anything with anyone. I wanted, like, I would have done much more with them. If I were to go back in time, I think I would have done much more with them.
What would you give advice to parents who are going through a loss of a loved one?
Not to think that this is something that's going to go away. It's going to be there forever, but not to let it take over your life. Not to let it make you less of a person than what you were before.
Yeah.
Take your loved one's life and expand on that, and make it beautiful. Make it something that your child, like Mazen died, but I will never let him die, is what I'm trying to say. Mazen will forever live.
Don't they say you celebrate the life instead of the
celebrate
death?
the life.
Yeah.
You celebrate his life. You celebrate his life with his children. You keep his history, his story alive through his, via his children. You talk to them. You explain to them. If he doesn't have children, then he will always remain. Some people choose to do, foundations, and some people choose to. They pick whatever. Like Joe Biden, he's doing something with the cancer research because his son also died from the same. So people choose to do different things that make them feel better, and I think that helps.
That helps.
You can't just say, okay, it's over.
Yeah, that's a good advice. And before we take a break, I would like to say that Dr. Mary would like to volunteer some of her time to mentor one of our female viewers. So if you're interested, email us, heyamentor@gmail.com. And when we come back, we're going to talk with Dr. Mary about surviving the loss and setting up goals and how to execute them and find happiness all over again. And we'll be right back.
Michigan's best contemporary is at Telegraph and 12 Mile, and now at Gorman Southfield, save up to 50% off. That's limited time savings of up to 50% off all contemporary at Gorman Southfield, Telegraph and 12 Mile.
The One, we are business consultants who equip leaders to lead at their highest level while building teams that work together and support their team and the leadership. We deliver customized business solutions that fit your company's needs, including business development and customized process solutions. Contact us today. Thank you.
Welcome back. We know, Dr. Mary, you have a PhD in education, and you are the creator of the English Language Institute at Henry Ford College. Tell us a little bit about that time, and why did you create this and all that?
When I first came back in '87 to Dearborn, I was away for 20 years and I came back.
Yeah.
I worked at Dearborn High School, and I ran the English as a second language program at the time. They used to call it bilingual program, where we would have foreign students come and we would teach them English.
Yes.
And I liked it. I liked that idea, and I would have maybe 3, 4, 5 maximum different nationalities, because we didn't have that many foreigners. But after a 10-year period, and I moved into the English division, and then I got a phone call from a friend of mine and asked me if I'd be interested in working at the college. And so I said I might start teaching there part-time to see what you're talking about and if it's something I'd like to do. And I did, and I worked there part-time at night while I was still working during the day. And then they were impressed with me, and I loved what I was doing. And so the president asked me at the time, it was President Mazzara, if I would open up an English Language Institute.
So it was needed at that time?
It was needed.
Okay.
They didn't have an English Language Institute. And so I did. He gave me the finances to do it. I talked to another person. I interviewed a few people, but I talked to a person. His name is Ed Demerly, and he became my partner. And he had been at the college for a good 20 years, so he knew all the politics of the college.
Okay.
And so we worked together, and together we opened up the English Language Institute. And it was the same year we opened the doors, was 2001, 9/11.
Okay. Yeah.
It was our first semester. We had 6 students. And I think the day after 9/11, we had 2 or 3 students. The rest of them, they left the country. They got scared.
Yeah.
And then Ed worked with me for about 10 years, and then he retired. And we only had like 40 students over that 10-year period. You would think you would have more students. But then, as soon as Ed retired, and don't ask me why and what happened,
Okay.
we serviced 85 different nationalities.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I had 600 students, and 35.
So it picked up
It
amazingly.
picked up like that.
That's awesome.
And they never replaced Ed.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So double duty over here.
So you were working hard, obviously.
So I was doing double duty, and I'm like, oh my
So,
God.
but it must have felt good.
It was
you
the
know?
best experience of my life.
That's
honestly.
awesome.
Only
Yeah.
because I met so many people.
I know you're trilingual, right?
Yeah.
You've been exposed to different cultures, traditions, and religion. You've lived in Africa and the Middle East. How is it like being exposed to all of this? I mean, go ahead.
No,
I wanted to say something.
it was beautiful. I encourage people to do the same thing.
Okay.
First of all, when I went to Africa, I didn't know French. And I had some French in middle school, high school, but
But was nothing.
nothing
Yeah.
significant. But when I went to Africa, I wanted to go back to school.
Okay.
And I had 3 children at the
We're
time.
going to talk about every part now.
They were born there. And, you know, Dania was born here. Dina was born in Michigan, but the other 2, I had them in Africa. And I went back to school in Africa.
Okay.
And I learned French, and I wanted.
So you learned French in Africa?
Yeah, and I wanted to study the French for the French baccalaureate because I went to the university for 2 years, and they told me, we're not giving you credit because you don't have a French baccalaureate. And then said, okay, I'll go back.
So you did French baccalaureate?
Well, I started, and
Okay.
then my husband decided to go to Lebanon.
Okay.
So we left Africa, went to Lebanon, but Africa, learning, you know, I worked with the nuns there. My children were in private schools, and I taught English there. That was the beginning, you know, where I started teaching English. They would teach me French, and I would teach them English. You know, it was a trade-off, and it was beautiful. And
That's
I opened
nice.
up a school for the blind.
In
Africa.
In Africa.
Mhm.
Okay.
There was a Jewish lady that asked me if I would help her, and together we opened up a school for the blind. I typed Braille, and
That
we
is
made
awesome.
books, and it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience. I loved Africa. I really did.
That's amazing. But before that, I mean, how was your experience? We have to talk about this a little bit. To be wed at 15 years old and leaving not the state from the state, not the state, to Africa. How was the experience like? I mean, you were a kid yourself.
Yeah, it was horrific. Yeah, I'm not going to say it was a beautiful experience.
Okay.
No, it was a scary experience. In fact, my husband at the time, when we got to New York, he goes, you know what? I'm sending you back.
Oh, so he went with you. I mean, he was
came
here? Okay.
Yeah, we got married within 2 weeks. Arranged marriage.
So I was going to ask you, was it
No,
an arranged marriage? Okay.
And then we got to New York, and as much as I was crying, my brother Jamal was my love. He was 10 years younger, and my mother
Okay.
had me taking care of him all the time. I'm like, how am I going to let go of my brother Jamal? I want my brother Jamal, you know, and I'm crying and crying. And my husband's like, I'm taking you back. I'm done.
Okay, and
Yeah.
what happened? He didn't take you back,
I
obviously.
said, no, it's okay. I'll continue to. So we lived, and it took maybe 2-3 years for me to adjust to my new life and being married. And then I had Mazen, and Mazen became everything to me, and that's probably why I was so attached to him, because I had him when I was 16. I got pregnant right away.
So
and I
yeah,
had
you were a
Mazen when I was
mother at 16 years old. You know, did you feel like you missed out on your teenage years at all?
Well, I did, and that's why I went back to school.
Yeah, okay.
But I did miss out on, you know, dating and going out and having fun and doing things that young teenagers would do. Yeah, I didn't do any of that.
Yeah, I mean, what would you say to girls nowadays if they want to really be in a not relationship, they want to be married at a young age? And we're not talking 15. I mean, now 21 or 25 is young now.
I know.
You know, things changed. But what would you tell them?
Well, let me tell you what Mahmoud, my first
Your
husband,
first husband.
told Dania. He put Dania on his lap, you know. They put her on his lap. He was dying at the time.
Okay.
And he said to me, you see Dania and Dania? And I said, yes. He said, don't ever let them get married young.
Yeah.
And I said, why, Mahmoud? And he said, because I suffered a lot with you.
Oh, he said
And
that.
he said, it's not fair to a man to marry someone young
Yeah.
and then have to deal with working with that
This
person.
is interesting. I
Yeah,
mean, for
he
a man
said,
to say
don't
that.
ever let them marry, because they need to have an education, and the person they marry, if they're young, isn't going to.
And I think when you get married young and you really want to do something after your marriage and it's harder. You have to do double the work with everything. You know,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
easy.
No, it's not. It wasn't easy, but because I loved school, it wasn't hard for me to go back to school.
Okay. So you were eager. What motivated you the most to go to school?
I was part of every club in Africa.
Okay,
The
so you were very
American Women's
active.
Club, the French Women's Club.
Right.
You have a lot of time on your hands.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
you know, domestic help, and you didn't really have much to do, and it was hot.
Yeah.
So you'd always find places to go to where you could be in a nice environment where you could
Yeah.
help. And so I was part of all these clubs. And what happened is you just start giving from yourself and giving of your time to make sure that things go on and your life. I learned a lot by volunteering and doing things that.
So it has to be in you. That drive had to be in you.
A lady came up
yeah.
to me and said, "You know what this is?" And I said, "No." And she showed me a book. It's called the GED. You told me that you didn't go to school.
No.
You didn't graduate with a high school. And I said, "No, I didn't." And she said, "Well, study the GED." And I'm like, "I would love to." And
you
she
did. You did.
And I did. I
Okay.
mean, I was only 16 or 17. Mazen was barely a few months old, and I
That's
told her,
good.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Take it home, study, understand what you need to do, and then
Right.
go to the States and take the test." And I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about a part about your first husband. You know, to me, the term of a widow evokes, what do you call it, a vision of an elderly woman losing her old man. But for some women, this is not the case, you know. In your situation, you lost your husband when you were 35 years of age. How was that like?
It was hard because by then I was really attached to him, and I loved him a lot. And I had polio when I was young, and it really never impacted my walk. And if it did, not too many people would notice. But when he died, I couldn't walk. It's what they call post-polio syndrome.
Because you were very sad.
I don't know if my nerves were shot, I don't know. And he had pampered me a lot, where I didn't even know how to write a check. I never had to worry about anything. I never knew what a house payment was. I never knew anything. And all of a sudden, all this is on me.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, my son wanted to go back to school, and I had to take over the business, and I had to.
So
and
you
I
had
couldn't
to
get out
learn
of bed.
things fast.
Real fast.
Yeah.
And it took me a few weeks, but and people, you know, in Lebanon, how the tradition is.
You were back in Lebanon
I
at
was
that
still
time.
in
yeah,
Lebanon,
yeah.
and she didn't even wait 40 days, and you know, and then finally.
But you had to do something,
yeah.
right?
Well, what do you want me to do? Are you going to feed my kids? I mean, I have to move on.
Did you feel sometimes that you had to put your emotions aside
I
and
did.
just take care and be responsible and
I
take care
did.
of your kids and all that?
I did. That's exactly what I did. In fact, when Mazen died, I took Mona to the side, and I said to her, "Mona," right before he died, maybe about 4 or 5 months before he died, "You're a teacher. You have what you need to become an educator, and I have some connections. I know a lot of people in the district, and I want you to go back to work." I told her, as much as I love you, as much as I'm willing to help you, and as much as I know that you won't be alone, you have family support and all that, I want you to know that no one's going to take care of you but you.
Yeah.
So I want you to go back to work. She's like, my husband's dying. I want to be with my husband. I said, "Mona, you have to go back to work."
And she
And she
did. Yes.
And I think it's the best thing she ever did, because
Yeah.
When Mazen, you know, once he was gone, she was working. She was able to support herself, and it was a beautiful. So yes, you don't have a choice. What I was trying to tell her, what I told myself, but you realize you don't have a choice.
You have to be
move on.
strong, and
Even
you were.
Mahmoud Ali Hamoud, he's the while he was dying, he said to me, we were at the AUH at the time. He said to me, "Don't forget to finish your schooling. Don't stop taking classes just because you want to be here with me. Finish your schooling. Make sure you finish your schooling."
So he was trying to empower you while he was dying.
He knew. If, you know, let her have something. Let her move forward with
So
something.
he played a role in your, you know, in your education, in your work, and everything else in your life.
Yeah, he would show off. He would tell people, "Oh, my wife, all right, she's
nice.
you know." He would start, and I'm like, "Mahmoud, please don't brag."
That is so nice.
He was nice.
And after that, and after your grief again, the loss of your husband, and you came back to the States and all that. So let's talk about, you know, living all over again after all these losses in your life.
Right.
Yeah, we want to like finish it with a happy ending, and you know.
Yeah, you don't treat your loss as the end of life. It is not the end of life, because your heart is still beating.
Yes.
You know, and you know, like I said,
Life shouldn't end.
No, you
there.
cannot.
Yeah.
Life does not. Living does not end.
Yeah.
You're still you know, you're moving, you're walking, you're living.
Yeah.
You do not have a choice but to keep going. And when
You have to make it worth.
Yeah. And when my friend said to me, "Mary, are you dating?" and I told her no, and she gave Ernie, my current husband, of 20.
So she's married again.
26 years.
26 years.
So I'm probably 90, 95, all right?
Oh,
If you
come
wanna
on.
do the math, and you'll see how old I am, right?
Well, you look great.
But it was a blind date, and it was cute because I liked what I saw, you know, but he was serious, you know.
Okay.
And I opened the door, and I'm like, oh. Dania was on the phone. She was in Puerto Rico. I go, "Dania, I don't think it's going to work." She's like, "Mama, give him a chance." Give him a chance. And thank God I did. And I have Adam now from him.
From your second
Ernie,
husband,
from my
okay.
marriage.
Yeah.
And so now I have Rania, Dania, Adam, my daughter-in-law, and my 9 grandchildren.
You have beautiful children and grandchildren.
Yeah. So, yeah, you do move on, and I'm very lucky. I consider myself very fortunate. I have a wonderful husband.
Great.
I can't speak highly enough of him, because he's just a woman's dream come true. I mean, he's a very, very understanding man, very delicate. He loves my children to death.
That's very
From
important.
the day he met my children,
Yeah.
you know, they weren't babies.
Yeah.
I mean, Mazen was in his 30s.
So he's a good father to them.
Oh yeah. Oh,
That's
yeah.
nice.
And they love him a lot. And
Well,
he loves
we're very
them.
happy for you.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm sorry about your losses, and thank you for sharing your story with our viewers today. I really appreciate you being here tonight. And
I appreciate
thank
the
you.
opportunity.
Thank you so much. And this book, Sprinkle of Dust, it's a great book. So it's a must read, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
so much, Dr. Mary.
Thank you.
Would like to have you back another time.
I hope so.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And that's
My
it for
pleasure.
Heya. Thank you and have a good night.